I found something so strange during my research of the information of things I keep to bringing you on this channel. Did you know that it's very hard to find information about cases of homicide against men as there are against women? Does it mean that there aren't any? Does it mean that they're not recorded? Does it mean that nobody bothers to check if or what happened to a male person as opposed to what happened to a female person after their death? Because from what I gather, there are many men that have died between the season of January till now, 2025. While I can find the exact numbers of homicide cases against female and their details, it's very hard to find cases of homicide against men and their details. Quite strange. Isn't it something to actually ponder on? Because how is it that we keep fighting for something and giving statistics without comparison? The other day I was watching the news and it showed some disturbing numbers of female homicide cases between January 2025 and April of 2025, which are above 129. And I did not hear how many there were statistically against male. Did they not happen? Do they not exist? Or are we saying that the male gender does not deserve to have the same kind of recorded data for just comparison purposes? You see, it's hard to fight a battle against something without facts, without comparison, because why is it that there aren't any recorded? And if there were, where are they? And why aren't they publicized as they are in female homicide cases? I probably am touching a nerve that I shouldn't, and probably should be careful on the path I choose to trend, but forgive me here, because if we want to be fair, if we want to protect ourselves, we must also protect others. Why are we forgetting that if we are protecting ourselves against men because we have declared it's probably a fight against male and female, why don't we get the statistics of both? Because right after the news of this tragedy named Femicide was a news against massacre against male chiefs in the county in Mombasa, where male chiefs were killed or were murdered, or somehow this is not as important as femicide in Kenya. It's quite a disturbing analogy, because I want to know 129 females were killed by their family, their relative, their lover, their husband, and probably a love triangle that it's quite hard to comprehend. It's very descriptive because we know, we have seen, we can read it, we can dissect the case and find it easier to blame the other gender. I mean, it's not very long ago that the news showed me a girl in MMU called Sylvia who was killed by an ex-boyfriend inside the vicinity of a school where she was supposed to be protected and pursuing her dreams. It's not very long time ago where in Thika we had news of a colleague killing their female worker because they worked too hard and exposed their loopholes where they stole, where they had some things they were doing that were not as per the company's integrities. And by exposing this through her hard work, her understanding of the business, it somehow became a life-threatening situation which led to her death. It's easy to have this information and find it and read it and hear about it, but it's very hard to hear the same descriptive stories of men who died through homicide. And I can't read enough of them while they are there. There are no details to show what happened to them and how we can avoid that in the future. However, we want that to happen to the femicide movement because women are crying in the streets. We are walking, protesting, and saying we don't want to be killed because truly nobody does. But why aren't we being fair by providing details of each and every case as it is? as a homicide that it is, whether it is against female or male, I do not support for anyone to be killed for any reason whatsoever. But to fight an enemy, you have to play in a fair ground. And playing fair games requires recognizing your strength, your weaknesses, your potentials. And ladies, we must stop putting ourselves in situations that are dangerous, because some of us are. But it is very important to note, but not all people place themselves in situations like that, because at the top of my head is a case of a student, not a student actually, a case of a 3-year-old who went missing, and a few days later she was found killed, and not just killed, she was raped and then murdered, and her parent was crying on news. It is very sad because these things exist, and it's very easy to get overshadowed by small information here and there. Nobody deserves this, whether being a male or a female. But let's put the facts out there so that we know that despite this happening to ladies, it's happening to guys. And this is why probably people are angry and revenging until they are heard. Nobody should have to swallow a death of a relative, a friend, a mother, a sister, a father, a brother. Because as I recall, there's a case of a gentleman somehow who died after going an overnight club, but this information was not publicized. I had to look for it because someone mentioned it, and I said, I have not heard of it. And while I may not know about everything that occurs in the country or in the news, it's very hard to miss a homicide case, especially one that involves a guy going into a club with a lady, dying, found weeks later or days later, while the girlfriend whom they were partying with left the premises and continued with their life as though nothing had happened. Why aren't we fighting for the rights of this person? Because clearly it was not just a death because they were a guy, or it was not just a death just because they were in a relationship, or was it? How do I know when there is not information that is clearly recorded or data statistically telling us this is why it happened, or this is possibly why it could have happened? Because with ladies, we are told it's probably a love triangle, maybe the lady deserves it, maybe somehow, like Sylvia, they might or must have provoked someone else to receive that treatment. Because last I checked, the lady who was killed by their female or male co-worker, who was supposedly supposed to be their supervisor somehow, her only mistake was not being in a relationship with him, but probably being too good at her job, which can be found nosy by finding problems within the organizations that are hindering their growth or development, or even her performance at work. Isn't it interesting that we want justice, and while I speak, I cannot say or specifically identify cases in detail that involve the same scenarios for the male gender? You see, I want to know. It's okay. Nobody deserves to be killed, and truly everyone who participates in such a thing should be kept away for a long time, if not for the whole of their life, to prevent that from happening again. But let's remember that we have male and female living in this earth and in this country, for example. And let's recognize that this is not just happening to guys, it's happening to male gender as well, because it's not just a crime against female, it's also a crime against male. Because I also still saw an update of a case that is ongoing of a man who was killed in their premises, a mansion for that matter, if you know what I'm referring to. I could bring that in this channel in the future. If you like, please hit the subscribe button so that you can keep yourself updated. And if you have a case that's a male related, which is hard to find out here, and you would like me to address it, I will ask you to go to my YouTube bio where there's an email, and I'll also include that on my channel down below, or description of this video, so that you can share some of these things so that I can talk about them. Of course, after researching, I will not talk about a case without its facts. And to encourage me or to empower me, show your support by hitting subscribe button. Time will come when you can gift me for talking about a story. In the meantime, nobody is paying me to do what I'm doing. No, this is not sponsored at all. Time will come for that. I cannot reject sponsorship for my channel because I'm using my voice to try and send information that might create a balance that is much needed in this country. Hear me today, because I want to share important information. I want to put this out there in the easiest way possible. And if you are up for such a ride, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment in the comment section below, and let me see you in the next video. Stay safe.